According to an ancient Chinese proverb, wealth does not pass 3 generations. The first generation builds the wealth, the second generation is inspired to preserve it by witnessing their parents' hard work, and the third, having never witnessed the work that went into creating the wealth, squanders it. In today's video, we'll be talking about a family you probably have heard of before. A family that once had more wealth than anyone else in history. More wealth than Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Eli Manning, the cashier at McDonald's, a homeless man, and depending on what Tesla's stock is at this time of watching the video, even Elon Musk. This family was the Vanderbilts. We will discuss how the Vanderbilts went from being the wealthiest family in history to generations later, not a single Vanderbilt being a millionaire. While discussing how the family squandered such wealth, we will also discuss what they could have done differently to still be one of the wealthiest families today, like the Rockefellers. With all that being said, let's dive in. Cornelius Vanderbilt. Cornelius grew up poor. He started in the transportation industry, moving supplies for the British military, and eventually went all in on the railroad industry, where he amassed extreme wealth. Cornelius married his first cousin, Sophia Johnson. Yup, a whole lot of weird. And they had 13 children together. In 1877, Cornelius Vanderbilt died and amassed more wealth than anyone in human history have ever had. So the next question is, where did all his wealth go? Second generation. Cornelius gave all of his wealth to his son William. Cornelius was a very sophisticated man. He knew that only William could manage such wealth among all of his children. For example, he had a second son, Jeremiah, who was a gambler, who had epilepsy, and was a terrible businessman. He was great at one thing: squandering money. Cornelius even specifically told his friends and colleagues to avoid his son at all costs. Jeremiah eventually took his own life after trying to convince the courts William, his older brother, attempted to paint the picture of him being a terrible human being and failed. This is a reminder to make sure whoever you pass money down to is suitable to receive this wealth. So Cornelius' wealth was passed down to William, his oldest son, in a trust. William ended up doubling his dad's wealth in a total of an 8-year span, but ended up dying in 1885. Now the question becomes, if William doubled his dad's wealth after all of that time, the question becomes, where did that wealth go? Remember our quote from the beginning? Well, we are here, the third generation. This is where the wealth started to deteriorate. When William passed, he split most of his wealth between 2 sons. And when his sons passed, they passed it to their kids. Every time a new generation received money, a massive tax bill was due, thanks to our good friend Uncle Sam, an inheritance tax. Wealth went from being all in one place to spreading to multiple people throughout generations. It didn't just start and end with wealth separation. It went to frivolous and lavish spending. See, the Vanderbilts' identity was in consumption and spending more money than anyone else. They spent their wealth on arts, enormous parties, expensive hobbies, and they all lacked the desire for business ventures and value creation. They became a family that cared about looking wealthy and being known for their vast mansions and fancy items, which became their family's mission and focus. Through more generations came the Great Depression, which killed a massive amount of the Vanderbilts' wealth from 1929 to 1939. By 1970s, they had squandered it all. From 1870 to 1970, 100 years later, the family went from being the wealthiest family to not a single person being a millionaire. So the question remains, what did they do wrong? And what could they have done differently to remain one of the wealthiest families in the world today? Some of it seems obvious, but let's discuss the obvious and slightly more in-depth plan they could have taken, where they failed, and what they could have done better. Let's start with the obvious. Money will eventually run out if someone spends more than they create and goes beyond their means without replenishing what is paid. Because the Vanderbilts' identity was in things and they were all disinterested in business and creating value, it was only a matter of time before the wealth was gone. Second, what the Vanderbilts failed to do was keep their wealth concentrated. Wealth will disappear if it is broken up and is inherited from generation to generation. As families start to have kids and their kids have kids, wealth slowly dwindles and spreads over time. Instead, they should have kept it all together in one place, allowing funds to grow faster together and never leaving the family money pot. In summary, keep the money together. So let's talk about the tactics for keeping money in the family generation after generation. A family trust. Cornelius initially set up a trust and gave William control over it. Once William had kids, there was a high likelihood that no trust was in place due to their lack of financial education. The third generation was born into wealth. They weren't there to see it be built. So let's talk about the trust and how the language in the trust documents could have kept more wealth in the family for longer. But first, let's discuss one thing that must be there for all of this to work, and that is the mindset. I don't want to be all fluffy here, but this gets swept under the rug. Without the proper family mindset, no financial strategy will hold over time. The Vanderbilts lacked values, traditions. They didn't institute strong beliefs about money and business, and they didn't indoctrinate people into this mindset. The Vanderbilt's beliefs and systems revolved around spending and looking wealthy. Let's look at the Rockefellers and what they did to develop the appropriate mindset for wealth creation. The Rockefellers believed in family, building culture, and spending time together. While some families today never meet, the Rockefellers would meet more than twice a year with over 100 people to make family connections, traditions, and when someone in the family of the Rockefellers turned 21, they were brought into family leadership. They came into an annual meeting to be on the same page to discuss the family's milestones and plans. The Rockefellers put significant emphasis on the past and family history and learned where they came from. That way, the family wanted to honor their ancestors. The Rockefellers also did an incredible job of making the family spouses feel extremely welcomed. They would even marry strategically like other sophisticated, wealthy individuals. Not a terrible idea. So let's take this whole mindset and reconstruct some of the vocabularies that Cornelius could have created when setting up a trust so they had a better chance of keeping their wealth. As a grantor who created the trust, Cornelius could have stated, "People in the family shall only receive their funds if they come to our annual meeting twice a year. No one shall receive funds unless indoctrinated at 21 and attend our leadership meetings to align with our family's missions, values, and value creation. Individuals shall only receive funds if they desire to create value, start a worthy profession, learn a skill, or start a business." As a grantor, you can be as granular as possible. If you say people can only receive funds if they have my picture over the fireplace, well, there you go. That's not encouraged, but it's your decision. The language of the trust can also state that their funds are used only for business, real estate, and purchasing assets owned by the trust. As the assets continue to grow, the trust will be replenished. Why am I spending so much time here on mindset and language? Well, I will discuss 2 more strategies that will rock your world. However, if family beliefs, traditions, and mindsets around life and money still need to be established, money will eventually squander and be lost regardless of strategies. Now that we know the importance of mindset, let's discuss the 2 strategies to bring this all together, which would have ensured the Vanderbilt's legacy. Wealth creation strategy number 1, using life insurance. You either are like, I get it, or scratching your head right now and like, what in the world is he talking about? Stay with me, as this is one of the most powerful assets for helping generational wealth, not just when someone passes, but also while living. This is how it works. Every family member gets a life insurance policy, and when they die, the enormous death benefit goes back into the trust to replenish it. All you have to do is make the beneficiary the trust. The process then rinses and repeats with every new family member. Imagine 100 people have life insurance every time someone dies. A massive amount of money goes back into the trust, replenishing the pot to create even more wealth. And the cherry on top is that the family doesn't have to wait for someone's death to start using the life insurance proceeds. The family can use the policy's cash value, which is available on permanent life insurance only. This strategy does not work with term insurance. Funds can be borrowed for business, real estate, and other assets that continue to increase the value of the trust and family money pot. The other compelling part is that since we borrow, the insurance company gives us a loan to use the funds. This gives us our dollar tax advantages. No taxes must be paid for growth or use. Loan interest for business or real estate can also be a tax write-off. Talk to your CPA about that. So imagine having an asset that will grow and compound. You use it as collateral to borrow funds to buy other assets. You get many tax advantages and control more liquid funds. And then once passing, a massive amount of money gets replenished and used again to rinse and repeat for generations to come. This method has been coined the Rockefeller method. Feel free on my channel to watch the video called Keeping Life Insurance in a Trust to see a more visual representation of this strategy. The last strategy I will briefly touch on is being philanthropic and using a foundation to do so. If the Vanderbilts set up a foundation and used it to grow wealth and then pass it down for noble causes, this would do a few things. One is the money that is inside the foundation has massive tax advantages. You don't pay taxes on the investment growth, which continues to grow tax-free. It is like your own personal family endowment. Why do you think all the extremely wealthy individuals have foundations? The Vanderbilts show no sign of being genuinely philanthropic, except for Cornelius's gift of $1 million endowment to the University of Vanderbilt, which they named after him. By the time the third generation came, they had spent it all with no belief system and no desire to help others. Being philanthropic does more than just help you feel more fulfilled. It also gets you in rooms you never otherwise would have been in. It helps you build more connections you could have never had before and presents you with more opportunities. So as you invest in others, you indirectly invest in yourself. And to the T, this is precisely what the Rockefellers did and still do to this day. So in summary, the Vanderbilts were once the wealthiest family ever, and they did not have any extreme wealth 100 years later. And the way they could have prevented this was through mindset, creating solid values and beliefs around business, money, and value creation, using a trust and set it up the right way, using assets like life insurance, business, and real estate to replenish the trust, be philanthropic and use a foundation to do so, to be more fulfilled and create more opportunities. And with all of that being said, we are more than happy to help you set up a trust, foundation, or get life insurance to help you implement these strategies. If you are interested in any of these, please use the link below. And remember, thanks again, please subscribe, and until next time, we're looking forward to help you giving your dollar more than one job.